It's a beautiful day out here in the garden, and I want to show you a quick update of how things are looking with my annual vegetables, growing in both traditional raised beds and also sub-irrigated planters. And I'll even show you some ideas if you're thinking of what to do about some trellis systems to be able to train plants to grow vertically, making best use of your space. Alright, so let's get in here and see how our plants are looking at this point in the season. As we look here, this is the cool, shady side of the property, and we've got our raspberries, thimbleberries, gooseberries, blueberries. We have our chives here, and then above the chives we have the green beans that are climbing, spreading out, doing really well. Now, check this out. This 4 foot by 8 foot sub-irrigated box. We have corn that's really taken off and filled in nicely. On the other side of this box though, split down the center, we have a vertical support system that we've set up to kind of separate from the corn. We have some of these squashes. So here, these are cantaloupe, and we already have a little guy that's coming in. We have some zucchini. We've been getting a couple of these already, harvesting, eating, delicious. And back behind here, we have, going a little bit higher up, getting the sun at this level, we have that spaghetti squash. As we turn over here, we get a nice look at this bed, which most of the garlic has been pulled up from, getting ready to put in our fall crop. And in this 3 foot by 3 foot area, a really nice yield of onions. Look how large some of these are getting. Very exciting. It's really nice to just come in here, look at everything. It's pretty easy to maintain things because you just have this nice continuous path as you go through. So let's take a path over here to the warmer side of the property, and we'll see how things have been growing in. As we come along to this side, we have our beautiful passion fruit vine, which has a fruit you can eat, and we have our flowering herbs, our culinary herbs. We have our espalier pear. Here's one of our sub-irrigated boxes with peppers. Behind here we have some plums and some other fruiting things. And then here, where we had our strawberries, we got quarts and quarts that we have in the freezer. But now above that, we have our Chinese yard-long beans that are coming in. Here are our aronias. We had a really nice, heavy set of fruit with these aronias, and if you read anywhere that the birds don't mess with them, well, those are people that don't grow them and that just copy and paste things they find on the internet. I have had robins just completely try to strip this thing free of fruit, and if I hadn't nabbed some at one point and stored them, I would have had nothing. Here are my persimmons, and check out these watermelons. Yep, I have them going up, going vertical, and then I'm allowing them to kind of spill out. And here are the peppers, tying them up, that way the branches don't snap from the weight of all of these peppers that we're getting. Some nice beautiful bells, and we have a couple Italian Marconis. Let's take now a moment to look at all the different things that you can use for the construction of your different systems, depending on what it is that you're trying to grow. You really do have a broad range of options, partially depending on whether you're focusing on annual vegetables or if you're looking at more of perennial fruiting things. Some trellising and support systems are going to be able to handle a lot more weight. Some are going to hold up a lot longer. So we'll look at several things that I've implemented, some that are makeshift, some that are designed to last for years and years, and depending on what you're trying to achieve, I'm sure that we'll be able to find something that will work for you. Here's some different things that you may want to use for training your plants. These are for more of a perennial support system. Maybe if you're going to do espaliers, if you're training some vining things, maybe it might be like a grape or like a kiwi, something like that. You have some different gauge of galvanized wire. The smaller the number, the thicker the wire. So keep in mind how much weight it's going to have to support. You can tighten these with turnbuckles, and then you can attach plants to the wire with different types of these flexible, like PVC type of wraps that will expand as the plant grows. Now, if you're looking at your vegetables though, you may find that a welded wire, it could be galvanized, it could be coated, but something like this may be just what you want to be able to train your plants up, or something that's easy to work with and very inexpensive. You can get this polyester trellis netting. This stuff doesn't cost very much at all, and it's lasted for me for a few seasons outside all year round. So you'll see that in a few places where I've been using it. To support these systems, you need to have rigidity, you need to have a frame or some kind of a structure. I like to use PVC. You can use 1/2 inch, you can use 1 inch. This is going to be able to hold more weight and less likely to bend than this. In short pieces, this doesn't really want to bend, but in a long, like 8-foot span, you'll be surprised how much this can warp and twist, and how much it'll sag if you don't support it. You can even use pieces of wood, and to support your plants, you'll see where I'm using these in some different places. These are so great. I mean, just like one pack of these can go so far and help you so much, whether it's your tomatoes or your vining things, whatever it is. You'll see how helpful these little guys are. And some jute cord, definitely you have to have something like this. It's biodegradable. You can use it to tie up your plants in all different manners, and this will help you significantly in whatever it is that you're trying to do. So let's look at some of these. Well, first we'll start with our annual vegetables, and I'll show you what I'm doing here. For these beans, I've found that this trellis netting does perfectly fine to support the weight of beans. It works good for peas. These things don't really weigh it down a lot, and it holds up pretty well. I supported this by stretching it between some 1-inch PVC, just using some elbows. I don't use any glue on any of my PVC fittings. I just slip them together and get them nice and tight, and they've held up really well for me, but then I can always pull them apart and use them for a different application, should that be the case that I need to do so. Here, these peppers, if I don't support them or tie them up in some way, they're going to want to snap. So I make this nice rigid PVC frame, this like little cage if you will, and then I can tie them. There's that jute cord that is connected to this upper section here, and you'll see some of these fittings for this PVC, if you go to a store, you'll be able to readily find, like a regular box store, but some fittings you won't readily find. You have to buy these online often, or some specialty place. And like this type of fitting right here, I got this off of Amazon in a multi-pack, and these things are so great. It really gives you a lot more versatility in the way that you can use your PVC. So like, just to show you real quick how I'm tying up these plants, you remember those little clips? Well, I'll put a clip down here and then connect. I'll tie on a piece of that jute cord, and then I'll spiral wrap it around the stem, and then pull that up and attach that to my frame. So that allows the plant to be able to be well supported, and even despite storms and things, it stays in place. Here I've built like a little bit of a corner trellis for this watermelon, and using this 1/2-inch PVC, in between here I've wrapped some of this welded wire, this coated welded wire, and I can use these clips as the vines keep growing. I can twist them and interweave them in here to try to make them run as long of a course as possible before they finally get to the point that they filled this up and now they're ready to start spilling into the ground. But before they get to where they're really taking up space on the ground, they've already made all this growth, and they're putting all this energy here into being able to capture this sunlight in a very, very tight space. I like this welded wire in between these PVC frames. You'll see on the next box where I've done this technique as well. You could even drill some holes in there to insert the end of the PVC and wrap it around. But something to also help to attach it, zip ties. Zip ties are going to really be a good friend of yours as well, so make sure you're stocked up on some of those too. Here we have a nice frame that we've built around the corn, a little skirt to hold it up, that way it doesn't blow over from storms. And on this half of the box we can see all the weight that we're supporting all of these multiple spaghetti squashes that are being held in place because of this infrastructure. This is just a 1/2 inch PVC. There's a little bit of some flexibility, but we've connected it with different elbows and connectors, and then once again I've used this coated welded wire to just stretch. So this stretches like all the way here, wraps around, and it goes the whole way down, the whole 8-foot length just about. And then on the end here we have another cage similar to what you've seen already in the construction, so I can get things to go up, get them to go up, and really get the most production out of a small area. Here's another one with the peas, and this one I was using the PVC, and I actually stretched that trellis netting in between here, so it was able to hold up pretty well for a while now, and I'm satisfied for how much I had to spend on it. Trying to extend the height of a chain link fence, ideally there are some pipes that you can get that will attach to these end caps, but the way that this fence is constructed, I have this horizontal post that's just running, topping off everything, so I don't have like these nice clean caps that I can like pop off and then put more chain link along there. So I took some T-posts, I took some U-posts, and I zip tied them like very securely, like some heavy duty zip ties to shoot up, and you know, even with strong winds these have held up well, held in place. Once again I have this polyester trellis netting that is coming down here. One nice thing with your U-posts, things like these, normally this would go down into the ground, but these have these nice little hooks on them that you can attach your wire or your netting and kind of hold it in place there, where if you look at a T-post, it's shaped differently and it has like these little nubs, but you don't really get like a hook. So that's a difference, one of the differences between your U-posts and your T-posts. But by doing this, it's allowed me to get all this extra growth out of these beans, and I have a structure that's been in place now for a couple of years. Now, when it comes to the aesthetics of your place and you want to look at more of your permanent structure, you were looking at more of your permanent plants, your perennial things, well, you might want some stuff that looks even nicer. So now you can get into things like lattices. This is a plastic type, and I went with the plastic because I didn't want to have to paint it, and I didn't want to have it just like start to rot and break down. I think that this was a good way to set this up. It's nice bright white, and it's going to just stay like this, and I used this plastic and fit it in between these channels of plastic. It's the same material, and I was able to secure these in place, but now this material is fit into the same material, and I'm going to show you why that's the better way to use this stuff in just a moment. Over here I'm using a tighter pattern because I wanted more seclusion, more privacy, even when the plants aren't here, like all through the off season in the winter time. I still wanted more of a privacy screen, so I have like something that's closed up a little bit more so. And although I do like this, I'm using it within a wooden structure, a wooden frame. I screwed into this, trying to use oversized holes, trying to not screw it in too tight. But still, we've had pieces of plastic that have chipped off. Why? Because of the thermal properties of expansion and contraction of the plastic versus the wood. They're different. The rates at which they expand and contract make it so that at certain times there's a lot of pressure where this wants to buckle, and those screws that are holding it in place just end up wanting to chip out. It just wants to pull apart, and that's what's happened here. So you're better to do like I showed you previously, where you have some of those plastic channels that you can slip this down into, allowing it to fit a little bit more loosely, and it can like expand and contract as it needs to. If you have a basic freestanding structure, a quick go-to is your fence post. This is a treated 4x4 fence post that you put down in the ground. You dig down 2 feet, and ideally you can put some concrete at the bottom of the hole and make sure that it's nice and secure, get it like nice and level, and now you have what you need to hold up a lot of structure, whether you're wanting to attach something like a lattice, trying to create like a privacy screen that way, or I'll show you what we have here. We have some eye bolts that have been screwed directly in here. This was just directly threaded, you know, you pre-drill and then you just screw these right into the wood, stainless steel. This is going to hold up really well. Here is a turnbuckle. You use these to tighten that wire, and then connecting there we have that galvanized wire going across. So a few levels of this, and I have what I need to attach bamboo strips, and then I can tie my plants onto that bamboo and getting them running in the direction of the bamboo. And as you see here, this is where you can use this more of a pliable, like a PVC type of material that you can tie these with. This will stretch and it won't quickly girdle the plant. You don't want to use wire. Do not use wire to tie these, because it will just start to cut into the bark of the plant as the stems thicken up. I think that it's really worth using those for an application like this. I've also been using those to continue to tie down the horizontal cordons on this Asian pear, and you know, as you get that fresh wood that hasn't lignified, it hasn't gotten hard yet, you can just keep going and just tying and tying these until you get to where you need to be and you're set. This was like one of the first structures that I'd built. As soon as I'd moved in here, I set this up just using old pieces of pipe that were laying around, and I tried to secure them to this cinder block and then connect them with some wire. But since then, I have some better techniques, and I'm going to show you what I'm doing now. Here on this trellis for this kiwi, we're getting the vine trained up and we're shooting it across this nice thick gauge galvanized wire. It's going to hold up for quite some time very well, hold a lot of weight as the plant gets bigger. But for the vertical supports here, I'm using some pretty beefy T-posts. These have like a nice flat edge here, and that flat edge has allowed me to take 2 T-posts, drilling holes through, getting stainless steel bolts and bolting them together. So what I was able to do is take a short T-post, drive it down straight into the ground, really close to the profile of the building, and then I was able to take and attach this second one, which was already set up, and bolt that in place. And you know, you figure if I had like a full height, like a 10-foot T-post, I wouldn't have been able to drive it straight down because of all this overhang from the roof. I wasn't going to be able to do that, and that's why I did it this way as opposed to using one continuous one. At the very top, I connected this with a horizontal T-post as well. That way it stays parallel, and you know, as you tighten up the wire, it's going to want to pull in, so this will stop the top from pulling in. Something I noticed though is even with doing that, in the very, very center, at a certain point, this was wanting to start to buckle a little bit, so I had to stop tightening it anymore and just leave it where it was. Now here's another way. These are my red and white currants. I have these horizontal wires that are stretched here, more of that galvanized wire. It's not as thick of a gauge. It was pretty easy to work with, but what I did is I got some treated wood and pre-drilled some holes, and using Tapcons, I've actually taken Tapcons, special type of a bolt that is designed for like concrete, and went straight into the cinder block, driving that in. So now I have like a really, really nice sturdy infrastructure here but it's wooden, so I can now drill into it, I can attach things to it. It's projected out from the cinder block, and the plants are now able to be trained using the bamboo and tying them so that I can get like some nice vertical growth with the way that I'm trying to do these. So once again, you can see these eye bolts. These ones are actually bolted on. They're not threaded into the wood, but I have bolts on the other side. And as with any of these galvanized wire setups, I'm using again some turnbuckles. And so you twist this and it tightens that up. And you can get it to the tension you want and you're set. Well, that should do it for today, guys. Thanks for taking time to watch. I appreciate your support on my channel and on my website. If you haven't been to albopepper.com already, please check it out. You'll see a lot of good gardening ideas, in particular, things about sub-irrigated planters. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, happy gardening.